This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Today it's Tuesday. It's January 9th, 2024. Please check out my Substack. I'm building it up rapidly. It's jeromecorsi.substack.com. And you can also find us. We're doing an increasing amount on X, formerly Twitter. You can find me there at Corsi Jerome 1, all small letters all together, at CORSI JEROME 1. Let's get right into the news. I have a statement that has been issued by Archbishop Vigano. And by the way, it is said in Italian, Vigano. People say Vigano in English, Vigano. He is an extremely important voice in the world today. He has been speaking out against Pope Francis very strongly and with brilliant commentary. And I'm going to read a couple sections of what he's written here, because this is a letter to an international group which I participate in that has meetings on the internet. And Archbishop Vigano graced us with a response that we're making public with his permission. Archbishop Vigano's letter is extremely important because he's really detailing what we are experiencing in terms of this Davos elite aiming to establish a new world order. And he's saying the global coup d'etat must be denounced, and those responsible for it tried and judged by international court. But above all, it is necessary for all of us to understand that this all-out war against humanity is not motivated only by the lust for wealth and power, but mainly by a religious motive, a theological motive. The reason is Satan's hatred of God. Satan's hatred of God's creation and hatred of man, was created in the likeness and image of God. Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, George Soros, and the hundreds of servants whom they blackmail in governments all hate God. They hate life, which only God can give. They hate love, which comes only from God. They hate peace, which can reign only where Christ reigns. As Tucker Carlson said a few days ago, we are facing people who serve Satan and the demons of hell, not just as normal people worship and serve God. So we are facing people who serve Satan and the demons of hell, just as normal people worship and serve God. This then is a battle in which body and soul, matter and spirit are made the object of a mortal attack by men and spiritual powers. But let us not forget that if our enemy avails himself of the help of infernal spirits, we have on our side the Lord God of the armies arrayed, Dominus Deus Sabaoth, all the hosts of angels and saints, infinitely more powerful. God is almighty. Let us never forget that. And he is Father. He does not abandon his children in times of trial. I therefore exhort you, dear friends, to fight this battle with the spiritual weapons that God places at your disposal: prayer, trust in the Lord, and awareness that this enemy will not be defeated where it is most organized and fearsome, but by striking it where it is weak. This weakness comes from its corruption, from its being subservient to evil, from the execrable sins that it has committed and still commits against God's little children. Because I tell you that men and women who in these 4 years have submitted and endured lockdowns, violations of their rights, job deprivations, etc., are not willing to tolerate the crimes that this cursed network of perverts and pedophiles commits against children. Therefore, bring to light and courageously denounce the network of complicity and crimes of politicians, bankers, actors, journalists, prelates, and famous people who are united by their blood pact and the whole castle of lies and deceptions that they have hatched will collapse, dragging with it the entire globalist plan, woke ideology, gender theory, fake climate emergency, digital currency. So he's saying in Latin, simo stabunt, simo cadent, which means as they stand together, so also they will collapse together. And he concludes, stay strong, therefore, under the banner of Christ and the army of God, who is almighty and who, on the cross, has already won the war that is now entering its final stages. Gather around the Lord, call on his holy name, and he will give impetus to your battle. Remember the words of St. Paul, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. That's Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano. It was written on January 2nd, 2024. It's a very, very powerful statement, and I encourage all to read it. Chris, any comments?
Well, we are basically, as anybody can say, we are definitely in a battle of wits and a battle for the soul of the world, not only just America, with the Davos types, the World Economic Forum types, the depopulationists, the people that want to fix the world into their image, and of course try to live forever on that as it moves forward as well. These people are kind of living in their own realities as well, their own false realities that they're trying to actually mold in with their money and power and make it real. That's a common theme that you discuss on this program are people, we shouldn't be adhering to people's false realities. Well, these guys, the World Economic Forum types, the powerful elite, are trying to force their reality on everybody else through their own power and money. We have to keep fighting this, whether it be through information, through ideas, and of course through grassroots discussion. They don't like us pushing back, and it really does bother them.
Well, I think we are going to win this war, and I think it's going to be a final battle, and I believe we are going to prevail.
Here's the question. What happens next with the Roman Catholic Church? They force, I don't believe that, again, I might sound like a conspiracy theory. I don't think it was easy for Pope Benedict to resign. I'm not sure if he really wanted to. It seemed like as soon as he was ordained as the Pope, as soon as he was elected Pope, the media jumped on him, the Western world jumped on him, and for some reason, he retired early, and they brought in this Pope Francis fellow. What happens to the church after Pope Francis winds up passing on or stepping down? Who would be the next pope? What kind of pope would we have? Would he be more PC, or would he be more like a pope we've had the last few times?
We're going to wait and see. But at the moment, we have this battle to fight, and Pope Francis is not on the winning side. That doesn't mean the Catholic Church, what Christ said was the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. So there's a lot of statements biblically that encourage us to fight this battle. Let's move on. In Israel, there's some developments in Israel and some developments in Ukraine. Antony Blinken, our genius Secretary of State, went to the Middle East, and he came then to see Prime Minister Netanyahu, and he was bringing the message from the Palestinians that there's a chance of winning acceptance of the Arab neighbors if Israel will create a viable path to a Palestinian state. So our State Department, the Biden administration, is still on the side of Hamas. They support Israel because they know they cannot openly support Hamas. But the idea of a Palestinian state after October 7th is a dead duck. I'm sure Israel will be very nice to Secretary of State Blinken. They'll listen to him. They'll all nod their heads. They'll shake his hand. They'll pat his back. And when he leaves, they'll forget about everything he said. Because after October 7th, the idea of creating a Palestinian state, which has been the desire of the Israeli left for decades, can't happen. Not when Hamas is on the ascendancy from Iran's backing, when Hezbollah has been attacking Israel from Lebanon, and when the remnants of ISIS have been attacking Israel from Syria. You now have a true axis of evil forming with Russia and China supporting Iran, and the Biden administration releasing sanctions step by step. We gave $6 billion worth of Iran's seized money back to it for the release of a few hostages just a few weeks ago, and everybody forgets about this. John Kerry has been over there negotiating treaties which essentially will allow Iran eventually to develop a nuclear weapon, and that eventually could be this year. And Obama sent airplanes full of money, cargo ships in cash to Iran. So the October 7th attacks from Hamas were so horrendous. The Israeli people were disarmed again by the Israeli left, taking guns away. And what you had was vicious attacks. People were burned alive. They were beheaded. They were raped. Children were killed. It was a massive, brutal attack against an unarmed enemy. It was hatred. It was satanic in its nature. And Israel now understands and is shocked into understanding this was a game-changing event. Israel is now heavily fighting in the south of Gaza to eliminate Hamas, and they are moving from full-blown warfare to a more targeted campaign in northern Gaza while maintaining intensive combat in the southern areas. So Israel announced yesterday that its troops killed around 40 Palestinian fighters and raided a military compound and turned shafts since Monday and destroyed the tunnels shafts since Monday in Khan Yunis, which is the main city in the south. So Israel's lost relatively few soldiers. 9 soldiers have been killed in the Gaza, mostly from engineering units operating against Hamas tunnels. This is one of the deadliest days of ground fighting for the Israeli forces. Their total death tolls, having lost 9 soldiers this week, the total losses for Israel, 187 soldiers. So what we're seeing is, of course, the United Nations and the Biden administration is screaming for a ceasefire and stopping the war. And I think that this message is going to go unheeded this time because Israel is going to clean out Hamas. They're going to destroy Hamas's grip on the Gaza Strip. And this is a escalation of war. You have Iran dedicated to kill Jews and destroy Israel, and Hamas is carrying out operationally the plans, where many of the Hamas leaders are safely away in luxury in Qatar, 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 and living lives of luxury while the ground forces in Hamas are hiding behind civilian shields to try to protect themselves. This is a war that will go on for a few more months and has the potential to expand into Lebanon, Syria, and it could do that at any time. It's intensifying tensions all through the region. And the issue of Israel's survival has never been more acute, with Iran marching now without stop towards nuclear weapons. Chris, you want to comment on that?
I was watching the speech in Charleston, South Carolina, Biden's speech, because he's been fun to watch, whether when you have to escort him off the stairs or he repeats the same things over and over. But I do have a clip of what he said to the crowd after the protesters broke in, and I found it rather curious. He said he was quietly working with Israel to get them out of Gaza. If you want to hear it, I can play it. Just
go ahead and play it.
Kind of give you a little context of what's been going on here. I'm going to switch over to the panel here, and this is what happened at his speech at the church. Oh, I forgot which name of the church again. It's in Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
I understand their passion, and I've been quietly working with the Israeli government to get them to reduce and significantly get out of Gaza.
And that's what he said, to get them to reduce and significantly get out of Gaza. The point is, the Western world, the Biden administration is trying to appease their far left intifada calling types who blocked the Holland Tunnel and the Brooklyn Bridge yesterday by trying to say, hey, we're going to try to get Israel out of Gaza. But the fact is, Netanyahu tried to talk with the Hamas leaders a long time ago. He tried to make something happen. Past leaders of Israel tried to work with this two-state solution as best they could. It's not going to happen now after this, like you said.
No, I mean, Jimmy
fantasy.
Carter brings Yasser Arafat and Simon Peres to White House. They have a big ceremony.
Right.
That was in the 1970s, I believe. And then have Clinton doing the same thing, and you have Trump doing the same thing. The fundamental point is that the Muslim nations have not accepted the Jews in Israel. And if they remain dedicated to destroying Israel, a two-state solution or accommodation is not going to happen.
But what you're asking is for Israel, after this major attack, to allow a legitimate government, which may or may not be, and again, let's lean towards the may be associated with a terrorist group like Hamas or even Hamas itself, on both sides of your nation, given legitimate access and legitimate recognition. It's almost like saying, well, let's just see. Should I, if I'm an orange, should I volunteer to get into that squeezer and make some juice for everybody else or not?
Well, again, if Israel were to grant a Palestinian state and say agree to it, you would have just rewarded terrorists, and it would only encourage more terrorism to destroy Israel. That's the problem, is that there is no solution when the other side views every concession as a victory. And that's going to happen and continue to happen for a long time. So I'm also seeing, I didn't put down as fully stories that I'm seeing, but economists are saying that 2024 is going to be a bumpy ride. The fourth quarter earnings experts or assessments that were registered in the fourth quarter of 2023 are being revised downwards. The growth prospect for 2024 is diminishing. It looks like 2024, there's a high risk we'll have an economic recession before the 2024 election. And so the Biden administration is just going to print more money. Quickly, I want to mention that the price of gold today is about $2,035 an ounce. It's still holding above $2,000 an ounce. And we have a lot to cover, but very quickly, I want to make sure that you know you can get this free book, which is the warning about the coming global crash, which is going to happen, and it's going to create an historic gold rush. And now is the time to get in on the gold rush and call Swiss America to get this free book and to discuss purchasing some gold at 1-800-519-6268. Give that number again, 1-800-519-6268. Okay, let's go to another story here about Victor Davis Hansen, who is really giving a very excellent essay here today about how the American culture has simply collapsed in the last few months. And he's saying our descent is self-induced, not a symptom of a foreign attack or subterfuge. Our erosion is not the result of poverty and want, but of leisure and excess. We are not suffering from existential crises of famine, plague, or the collapse of our grid and fuel sources. Prior, far poorer and war-torn generations now seem better off than what we are becoming. He's referring to this critical theory, the whole critical race theory, which is the gender uncertainty and all of the Neo-Marxism and cultural Maoism that the Democratic Party now embraces openly. He notes that financial implosion, which is this modern monetary theory that we can simply print money, has led to a massive and rapid increase in U.S. debt. We are up now to $34 trillion in debt. We are paying $1 trillion a year just to keep the interest payments, and we're just printing money. As military crises, Victor Davis Hansen writes, why do Iranian proxies attack almost daily U.S. installations abroad and ships in the Red Sea, apparently without fear of reprisal? And our military is so weakened we cannot protect shipping adequately. We have the USS Eisenhower, a massive aircraft carrier, in the Red Sea. I believe it entered the Red Sea this week. And again, these Yemen boats, these little boats, are attacking cargo ships, such that Maersk, one of the big cargo ship companies, is now decided while this uncertainty is going on, they're going to have to sail around the Cape of Africa in order to get to India and China from Europe, instead of going through the Suez Canal, which is a much shorter route, because the Red Sea is too dangerous. So we've got that's another artifact and consequence of the Hamas-Israel war, that Yemen is now also attacking shipping in order to enact pain on the United States supporting Israel. So why did our retired 4-stars with disdain violate the Uniform Code of Military Justice by seriously and publicly trashing the Commander-in-Chief Donald Trump? The Pentagon has revolutionized its entire system of recruitment, promotions, and tenure, the armed forces, by predicating them in large part on race, gender, and sexual orientation rather than merit or battlefield efficiency. Did we learn anything from the old Soviet commissariat system? Would we prefer to lose a war by promoting equity rather than winning one by ensuring liberty? These are important questions. Why do the top brass go after supposedly insurrectionist white males who died at twice their demographics during combat in Iraq and Afghanistan in the military, only to discover from their own internal investigations that no such cabal of domestic terrorists existed, and only to drive out thousands more of the maligned by requiring this DEI agenda to be dominant among the military. Race. Where are the sophists who can convince us that racially segregated dorms, safe spaces, and graduations are using race as an arbiter of admissions and hiring? We're not racist. The sexes. Would anyone believe that leftist gays and feminists would have done their best to destroy a half-century of female athletic achievement by allowing biological males to compete in women's sports and thereby erase the record performances of 3 generations of women? Lawlessness. In our major cities, George Soros-subsidized prosecutors have all but destroyed civil society. They have been systematically releasing felons with violent criminal records on the same day they are arrested, freeing convicted felons early from prisons and jails, and sabotaging the law by arbitrary enforcement on the grounds that is inherently either unfair or unjust. Education. Newly resigned Claudine Gay's meteoric career was based on the flimsy record of a mere 11 articles, the majority of them plagiarized. Her entire career was fueled by the tired pretext that the privileged Gay was somehow deserving of special deference given her race and gender. How did Ivy League degrees become mostly certifications of ideological and woke orthodoxy? Or is it worse than that? Does a Stanford history major, or a Yale literature graduate know anything, respectively, about the Civil War or Shakespeare's plays? Do they even know that we, the public, know that they don't know? Sovereignty. Do the left want new constituents, new entitlement recipients to grow government and raise taxes on the clingers and deplorables? Is this new America of ours, Joe Biden, is hale and savvy? Well, Hunter did nothing wrong. It just goes on. It's an excellent essay. I encourage you to read the entire thing carefully. And it's showing the dystopian future that is being created for us by this cultural revolution that the democratic left is imposing political correctness upon the American people. Chris, you want to comment on that?
On this Claudine Gay thing, she can't be the only one. The entire DEI industry is made up of people in the business world and, of course, in academia who have these flimsy records, but are basically there as, well, let's put it this way, symbolically. The problem is, and I believe I mentioned this a bit in the last program, but Victor Davis Hansen has emphasized this in the essay. These people are also controlling the country and they're influencing young minds. This DEI thing is not something that's just symbolic for the present, but it's an investment in the future as far as controlling the minds of young people here and in future generations. This way, the far left ideas, the World Economic Forum's fantasy we discussed earlier today about a world that will make make the globe a better place for them to live in, while the rest of us take the scraps, is going to be a reality. But this is where it all starts. Victor Davis Hansen is exposing it. And the idea is, again, Mao, Stalin, Lenin, the destruction of a culture has to be the key component to turning around the world to one's favor.
Yeah, I cover this in my book on the truth about Neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy. And by the way, we've added to the website a section where I'm selling my supply of author's copies books signed, and you can see that. Chris will demonstrate it to you on the website if you want to get some of the few books I have left. I have quite a few, but I'm going to sell them. These right through these e-pipes, you can buy the book directly, and on the front page you can get the current books through Amazon. But I have signed copies available of some of these books that are, I want to reduce my inventory of them. And I'm looking forward to doing that over the next few weeks. And I see here, Chris, are you showing some of these books are, as you'll see some of these books are, for instance, the Neo-Marxism and the newer books. Can't sign. You get those directly from Amazon. We should take them out of that section, Chris, and put them on the home page. And the ones that are available, if you'll scroll down a little bit, you can see that the Atomic Iran, the Black Gold Stranglehold, Coup d'etat, these are books I have in stock, and I'm going to sell those books with signatures. The others have to be bought on Amazon directly, and of course I won't be able to sign them. They'll be shipped directly to you. Okay, so we'll make that change on that page. A couple of stories on energy to wrap up here. France has decided now that it's going to go nuclear. So a new bill relating to energy sovereignty has been developed by Macron. And what they're saying is that they are redefining their net zero objectives to be achieved by the introduction of nuclear power, and a much less reduction on the development of offshore wind power or the creating solar panel energy, because they know they don't work. So all the language in French law about the going to renewables is going to be watered down. This is a significant change because it's the recognition that Europe cannot exist without either hydrocarbon fuels or a transition to nuclear energy. Renewables aren't going to do it. The entire global scam of the global warming movement is that hydrocarbon fuels may emit carbon dioxide, but they are in such small proportion, 0.04% of the atmosphere, whereas 70% of all greenhouse gases are water vapor. And carbon dioxide increases after warming. It doesn't cause warming. 600 million years ago, we had a lot more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than we have today, and we still had ice ages. This is completely another leftist lie to get us to stop using hydrocarbon fuels, and it's a depopulation movement. I think people are becoming increasingly aware of that. And finally, there's a complex story, but an important one because it has to do with the nature of geopolitics of gas going on in the inside this area of Asia, south of the. It's actually kind of combined area. Of course, it's going to put up a map in a minute here around the Caspian Sea, and you can see where Chris is pointing his cursor where Turkmenistan is. Okay, and then you can see where Turkey is. If we can get Turkey, so I'll show next where Iran is. Iran is across the Caspian Sea from Turkmenistan. Okay, and we have, I think, another map which may show Azerbaijan and hopefully Turkey. These are all countries in this region, and they're all dealing with natural gas, which they need in order. You can see Turkey there. So Azerbaijan, okay, if you go directly across from Turkestan, you get Azerbaijan across the Caspian Sea. Then to the south of Azerbaijan is Iran. Okay, and Turkey is to the west. I'm sorry, to the west of Azerbaijan. Okay, so you can see it's a very complicated region here, and they have got many of these stans, which means essentially the state of. So Turkmenistan is the Turkmen people's state. Azerbaijan, the Azerbaijan's is again a region dedicated to a particular tribal, very ancient tribal group in this area of the world. Same with Uzbekistan, Afghanistan. All these countries end in stans. And this region of the world is dependent upon natural gas. Now, what is going on is there's a geopolitics. Turkmenistan has been exporting its vast natural gas reserves, and they may want to start going through Iran to transit their natural gas to Turkey. Now, there have been swap arrangements with Azerbaijan, which are complicated, but essentially, Turkestan sends gas to Iran as part of a swap arrangement with Azerbaijan. 2 billion cubic meters of gas are piped into remote northeast areas of Iran that are in need of fuel. Iran then sends an equivalent amount to Azerbaijan. The result, if only in purely notational terms, is that Azerbaijan is really a buyer of Turkmen gas. Okay, that's complicated. So Turkmenistan sends the gas to Iran, okay, and Iran sends an equivalent amount to Azerbaijan. And so Azerbaijan has, in effect, bought the Turkish gas. It's a swap arrangement. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I think the future of energy in the world is hydrocarbon fuels. I think nuclear will come on, but again, massive increase in nuclear fuel at the time can be safer than it was in the first round because we have better technology. But the U.S. Navy runs on nuclear fuel today, and we don't have accidents every day. But it takes very highly trained, very disciplined workers to make sure that the nuclear plants work effectively. I'm not yet sure that we've reached that level of being able to have massive use of nuclear, not when you have airplanes with the hatches are blowing open. That's going to cause Boeing a huge problem. And again, getting highly technical things to work right, like nuclear power plants, advanced airplanes, advanced technology, advanced electric vehicles, requires a whole new level of technical expertise to maintain them. They're more costly. Little things can cause massive failures. It was the O-rings that blew up the space satellite when we were trying to get our astronauts to the moon, the shuttle, and that was it wasn't a tiny problem, but it was one component in the entire booster rocket for this shuttle that blew it up. One component failed. And that's, again, the problem with these complex arrangements. If you have one nuclear power plant that has one technical failure, it can cause a massive, massive natural disaster, environmental disaster. So I think hydrocarbon fuels are the future for a good long time. And what's going on here in the United States in the deregulated energy market and worldwide is the development, I think, of an energy exchange. It's going to develop because countries are going to be able to swap energy. Suppliers and manufacturers of energy are going to be able to sell that energy on the open market. And it's going to need an exchange to make it happen. And I've increasingly thought about working in this area because I like exchanges and I can see the mechanics of how one would work. But these two stories show that the world is realizing, especially as we enter a more crisis period, that this whole global warming is a scam, and the world is getting more chaotic, especially with the world realizing the extent of anti-Semitism that is engendered on our campuses that have now gone into this cultural revolution. We've become a neo-Marxist nation on the left. Democratic Party has become a communist party, whether they want to admit it or not. And our Congress is bought and sold. We have regulations that allow Congress to do insider trading. They're making huge amounts of money on the stock market. China's found it's very easy to buy politicians. I keep asking and wondering whether Biden is not being prosecuted and whether we are supporting Ukraine in this ridiculous war against Russia. Russia has the eastern part of Russia is still very Russian speaking. The southern part was always independent, but Russia's not going to give up access to the Black Sea. And Russia's taken the territory largely in Ukraine that it wants to secure it from NATO. NATO's being pushed to the borders of Russia, which is insanity. It's blocking its access in the north with Sweden and Finland could potentially both becoming NATO members. Russia needs access to the Atlantic through the Baltic Sea or the Black Sea, and it will not give it up. And what we're finding is with an increasingly chaotic world where Hamas is blocking traffic in New York, the Holland Tunnel or Lincoln Tunnel, and different places where it absolutely creates a massive traffic jam in New York. This is not going to be tolerated. When the universities are this anti-Semitic, you see Bill Ackman going after Claudine Gay when he realizes the universities are becoming not only ideologically oriented, not teaching, promoting modern monetary theory, which is insanity, teaching a leftist gender agenda, teaching racist policies in the form of the entire critical race theory, which is demonizing whites. And Bill Ackman is defending his wife, whom the left went after for her academic position, seeing if she has plagiarism. They have now these new plagiarism checkers, which they're utilizing and mechanically to scrutinize these works to see if there is not adequate quotation marks or someone has copied something out of Wikipedia without attributing it to Wikipedia, even though Wikipedia, you don't know even who the writers are. This world is becoming really chaotic and insane. Chris, any final comments before we wrap up today?
A little bit here. I thought I'd have a little bit of fun as well. We talked about Turkmenistan. That doesn't get into the news that often. So I'm sure people who are listening might recognize the name as one of the many former Soviet republics, but also, funny thing, Turkmenistan is trying to up its tourism now after being a Soviet republic for a long time. The dictators that ran the place have been kind of a little off kilter. And if you think that's bad, maybe some of the other stands could be worse. However, they're trying to open up a bit to tourism, which is rather interesting. The biggest attraction, speaking of gas, is the what's known as the Darvaza gas crater. That might be fun to visit one day. I have to say that right now. It's no joke. This looks like it's really rather interesting. They actually have tours. They have there's beautiful architecture in Turkmenistan. So they have tours where you can go around the cities, check that out, and then there's a day in this itinerary where they take you out to go see this, and I find it rather fascinating.
Well, good luck in Turkmenistan. I don't think I'm going to be.
I want to see this. This is on my bucket list. This and petting a penguin in Antarctica.
Well, good luck. I hope you get to do both. Let's wrap up. In the end, God always wins. God is going to win here too. I know it looks grim. Certainly looks like final days. And think that's what Archbishop Vigano is saying. And yet I'm confident in this. Look, by the way, people are saying I look younger. If you like the program, please go to our sponsors, including My Vital C. This carbon 60 is a miracle molecule, has longevity principles, and My Vital C has the product Chris is showing as sponsors. And if you pull down My Vital C or Swiss America, you can still get the Walking Liberty $50 offer. It's on the website. My Vital C, which produces this carbon 60 and olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, has even products for dogs and cats, which are the dogs and cats love. Check it out. God will win here. In the spirit of 2 Chronicles 7:14, I think God gives us the message to get down on our knees and ask for forgiveness for letting the world get to this point, taking God out of the schools in the 1940s, beginning then, taking God out of the public square, allowing millions of babies to be cut apart by abortionists in the womb. These are sins against God's law. I don't believe God created the human race to fail, but we are going to go through a judgment of God, and the more of us that join in asking God's forgiveness, I think the greater the probability God will hear our prayer and heal our land. This is a spiritual war. We're going to need spiritual healing, and we're going to need divine intervention to make this war successful. But I believe we will succeed, and that a new era will be born out of this chaos. Thank you for joining us in the Truth Central. We'll be back tomorrow and every weekday. Please spread the word about this program. Get others to come and join us. We're on many different channels. Rumble, Cloud Hub, BitChute, also audio channels that are all up in the right-hand corner of the website, thetruthcentral.com. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Take a look. You'll find many ways to hear this show. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. God bless.